We are coming to the end of the year 2025, and it has been a very educative year for those of us who are still students and are never tired of learning new things or learning more about politics and governance. It is a year where the UDA government forced us to go back to the basics of politics, the basics of governance, what one must do, what one must not do, etc., etc. But my show today is a kind of wrap-up on the status of various things which are developing in the motherland. The ODM wedding, it seems, is going to be very chaotic because the bride refuses to be married to this man. I'm sure you understand exactly what I'm talking about, because we have Raila Odinga on one side, very close to Ruto, trying to force through this arrangement which most favors President Ruto. We'll briefly look at that. And then something sad. Road accidents in Kenya. Especially during this festive season. They're too much. And actually, there is a very clear message we're getting. Yeah, and it is all spiritual. Stay with me and find out exactly what I am talking about. And then, of course, we're going to wind up with some devastating new developments over the death, allegedly through a car crash, of former Lugari legislator Cyrus Jirongo. And so there is a lot to expect from my show today. Twende kazi. There seems to be a new story about what happened to the late Raila Odinga. And this phrase, which we used right here on this channel and in my sensitive videos weeks ago, has now exploded into mainstream media. I'm sure most of you can guess what it is. Slow poison. Now, the details don't seem to be the same as what we have said on this channel really happened to Raila Odinga in my sensitive special report. Granted. However, I just have this to say. I stick to my story. I stick to my version of events. And I let time, the test of time, prove me right or wrong. You know, just before I came in to make this show, somebody made a comment that I want to share with you. They said, "Ai, Kumekucha, research kila saa. Wewe ufanyangi video, unashinda tu research. I think that is a perfect illustration of what goes on this channel. There is much more work before the video is done. Okay? And therefore I stand by the details, the information I gave you. But then, you also have to admit, it is more than super fascinating that weeks later, over 2 months later, we are now getting other sources confirming that it was slow poison. Okay, the details may slightly be different or very different, but the key thing here is that they are confirming what we said here was the real trigger that caused Baba to leave us. But then, don't worry, we're in the season of exposure. The truth will continue to trickle out until we have the entire truth. ODM bride. Hataki kuolewa, hataki huyo jamaa. That is really what it is, the long and short of everything. Now I know many of us have already come to a firm conclusion about the fate of this party that Raila Odinga left behind. And therefore any new information on what is happening in ODM is boring. Yeah, it's irrelevant. After all, we know ODM kwisha maneno. However, please allow me a minute to give some advice here. Okay? The issue here is not whether ODM will survive or not. Why we need to get updates on what is happening within ODM is because the drama that will lead to what most of you believe will happen, that drama is a lot of politics, a lot of very important, significant political developments that we cannot ignore. Okay? Yes, we know the conclusion, or we think we do, but then these are the things that will happen before that are very important politically. And therefore, in my humble opinion, we cannot ignore them. We need to pay very close attention to them. And right now we know that there's a rift within ODM. Something else many of us here may not know. It is emerging that a very large number of current elected ODM members will not seek re-election on the ODM ticket. Now that is major, very major news. But let's see how this pans out. Accidents, road accidents. This season, this year 2025, is definitely a record year when it comes to road accidents and fatalities, very unfortunate, on our roads. Just this morning, there was a terrible accident on the Nairobi-Mombasa highway, involving a passenger bus. Details are still scanty, but that was a very, very bad accident because the bus actually overturned. And there are many, many other reports countrywide, especially on the road to Western Kenya, Nairobi, Nakuru, Eldoret, that road. There have been many terrible accidents. Now, we always say on this channel, sisi wa Kenya tulisoma mpaka tukakuwa jinga. And therefore, I'm giving you the following information, knowing very well that maybe some of us will totally ignore it, which is okay. Some of us will say, what is wrong with Kumekucha Chris? Hizi ma superstitions za nini? I'm aware of all that. However, I will still give you the information. Now, it is a well-documented, recorded fact that road accidents in Kenya skyrocket when general elections are close. Number one. Number two, it is also well known that in Kenya, road accidents, fatalities on our roads escalate around the holiday season towards the New Year and Christmas. And we also know that some of these accidents are very bizarre. What we hear from eyewitnesses and survivors. In fact, mainstream media sometimes does not report because it just sounds crazy. For instance, survivors have said that the driver was trying to avoid a snake on the road when they swerved into the path of an oncoming vehicle for a head-on collision. We have also heard that an old man, very old, was seen crossing the road. This one was from Western Kenya. And then the driver tried to avoid hitting him. And that is what led to the accident. But let's put it all together. I believe the problem in 2025 And many of the politicians in parliament currently and in other elective posts are very much aware that the association with the current government will mean that they are currently unelectable. Okay? And therefore other spiritual means have to be used to ensure that they get re-elected. I'm sure you get what I'm trying. Is that we have two factors that has combined with the usual Christmas period horror stories. I believe that is why we're seeing what we're seeing. But as I said, I'm giving out that information. What you do with it, what you conclude, is up to you. Okay? Now the Cyrus Jirongo Manenos continues to get crazier and crazier. The member of parliament who took over from Jirongo, Bwana Enoch Kibuguchi, passed on Monday in an Eldoret hospital. And you know what the family are saying? And his close friends? There was foul play. He was not supposed to pass on. Now, this is disturbing because one cannot help link Bwana Enoch Kibuguchi, who was voted out in 2022, in another constituency that he had used for his comeback into politics. One cannot avoid linking this to Jirongo, especially because there's been so much controversy around the passing on of Jirongo. And we're sure that there are people who are very determined to keep some critical information away from the public that would conclude, that would allow us to conclude without any doubt that this accident was stage managed. Although Kenyans are already convinced, it is just that the conclusive evidence they do not have. Although in my opinion, if we look at what we already have, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the evidence is already conclusive. This was stage managed, a setup. Now I'd earlier come to a conclusion, which I could not share on this channel. I could not share to the public because I did not have anything, to peg it on. There was no information to at least encourage me that I was on the right track. But that has changed over the last few hours. Somebody has come out with some information that is mind-blowing. And it suggests that the Probox vehicle was key in the entire operation. It suggests that it is very possible that it is the Probox vehicle which carried the body of Jirongo before it was planted in the Mercedes-Benz. And that the switch may have happened, just before the petrol station and the CCTV footage we saw on the petrol station. Bottom line, it would seem that there was another crime scene. The main crime scene before what we saw in the CCTV and before this setup, this stage managed thing, that was broadcast to the media as the truth on what happened to the late Jirongo. It seems there was another crime scene. And it is highly likely that in that crime scene is when Jirongo lost his life. And also at the same place, arrangements were made for this setup. But we don't know. Let us continue to gather that information. Let us continue to receive that information on this. And slowly by slowly, the truth will come out. Hey, when the season of exposure, relax. The truth will come out. That one you can be sure of. You know, there is something else. There was an assassination during the Jomo Kenyatta administration of a popular Nyandarua legislator called J.M. Kariuki. Now, in this particular assassination, out of all political assassinations during the Jomo Kenyatta regime, this is the one which had so many blunders and gaps and doubts and stories and rumors and conspiracy theories, etc., etc. The others were clean. Pio Gama Pinto, clean. Tom Boyer, clean. Agwin Skodek, clean, very clean. Until Kenyans were convinced it was a road accident. For decades! Okay? But then JM Kariuki, everything seemed to go wrong. What was the difference? In the JM Kariuki case, it was not handled by the professionals in the intelligence community. No! It was handled by those who were close to Jomo Kenyatta. And it is highly likely that they assumed, these things are very easy to organize and set up. Kwani konini? And they went ahead with what they did, and the result was a mess. I mean, at one juncture, MPs, members of parliament, were coming into the city mortuary, only to discover some people in a window at the back, desperately trying to push out mwili wa JM Kariuki. Can you imagine such blunders? Yeah. Anyway, this Jirongo Manenos reminds me very much of the JM Kariuki case. And I'm persuaded to believe that actually the people who did this were not professionals. They may have been people who are close to power who did this. And of course everything looks very easy until you actually attempt to do it. Yeah, and you've never done it before. That is when things happen the way they have happened over the Jirongo Manenos. Because as I said in my last video, these people who unlived Cyrus Jirongo have been pushed into a corner where there are absolutely no more stories that will get them out of that corner. They are not going to be able to explain. There is no story on this earth which they can produce that can now start convincing Kenyans otherwise. Okay? Anyway, let's wait and see how that one develops. Now, we're heading towards the end of our traditional season for giving to Kumekucha Chris, which plays a key role in keeping this channel where it is. Yeah, giving you information that only comes to light months later. Okay? And it is this support and it is these gifts which go a long way, yeah, in supporting the relentless research I do every day, yeah, to produce the videos we produce on this channel. Unique, and many people rely on them. We're coming to the end of that season, and also we're coming to the end of the very special offer, yeah, which I've been talking about, which if you take advantage of, you'll be able to get the valuable golden key, which will mean that you'll have access to everything and anything Kumekucha without ever having to pay a cent again. And I mean everything, no exceptions. And of course what the deal is if your gift is at least Kenya shillings 2,500, I'll be able to give you the permanent, yeah, not annual, not 2 years, but permanent golden key, pop, forever. You can see details on your screens right now. Please take full advantage if you're in a position to. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.